Whenever I get asked the question about my favorite book or my favorite verse, I think of a different answer. So this will have to be the answer that I give today. Well, maybe not. Maybe this is actually my favorite book. But I love the whole Bible, and there are lots of books that would be up there. But I love the book of 2 Corinthians. It's second one, maybe the third letter, if there was one that was lost in between, that Paul wrote to the church in Corinth, a church that he had planted, a church that had lots of problems. But in 2 Corinthians, he writes really personally about his own trials and challenges, his own experience of coming to know Jesus, and his own experience of sharing Jesus. And I love the kind of personal nature of 2 Corinthians. And I think if you were to press me, not just my favorite book, but my favorite verse, which I know you haven't asked me for, but I'm going to give you, it would be 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7. And Paul says, we have this treasure in jars of clay to show this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. In other words, God has put the treasure of his gospel, the good news of Jesus, into jars of clay. Now, that's maybe not an analogy that works for us today. Maybe a plastic carrier bag would be a similar analogy. We're just weak, we're fragile, we're nothing special, but God has put something really special within us, and we've got this treasure that we can share. And I found that so encouraging because we're often very aware of our own inadequacies. And one of the things that the Bible does is it says, that's fine. We are inadequate, we are weak, we are fragile, but we have this treasure, the treasure of the good news of Jesus that God has given to us. And we also have that treasure to share with other people. And in a sense, therefore, our weaknesses and our inadequacies are the very things that qualify us to serve God. I remember as a 17-year-old boy walking down the road to my house with a friend of mine, and he was everything that I wanted to be, but I felt that I wasn't. He was popular, he was sporty, he was eloquent, he was extroverted. He had all the things that I wanted, and I felt I've got nothing. Who am I? I was a weak, shy, introverted teenage boy. And I thought, I've got no gifts, no skills, nothing. What would God ever use me for? And I remember saying this to my friend. And I remember him just saying to me, no, actually, God has given us all gifts and abilities. And if you're willing, he will show you what they are, and he will use you. Then I remember him just praying for me outside my house on that Thursday night. And I couldn't have believed then, if you had told me, what would have happened over the subsequent 20-something years. The opportunities that I've had to speak about the Christian faith in so many different contexts, to travel to different parts of the world, to be able to write books. None of these things were ever on my imagination. But God did have a plan and a purpose, and he had given me gifts. And I sometimes think, well, why me? And then I think God's answer is, well, exactly. Not because you're special, precisely because we're all ordinary, but God can do extraordinary things through ordinary people that are available to being used by him. So yeah, that would be my favorite book and my favorite verse if you want a verse too.